Good morning. Hello. It is so good to finally be here with you, good people, great people of St. Paul's. I am so glad to be with you this morning. I am glad for us to be together from here on out, and I am so glad to not be sick anymore. I'm really glad for that, but truly, I'm excited to be here with all of you today. I'm excited for us to continue to get to know each other and to share our lives with one another. So in that spirit, to that end, I want to share a funny story. I think it's funny. Y'all will be the real judge of it, but I want to share the moment I first came to St. Paul's. Right, back in August over the summer. So Reverend Sam has been running the mentor group for all the new clergy of the diocese. So that's how she and I met. And last year around this time, we had heard that y'all's former associate had taken a new call, right? So I, not so subtly, let Reverend Sam know that I would be interested in working here. And she was graciously non-committal to my blatant overtures, and said something like, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the Lord has for us. We'll see where the Spirit leads, right? So in mid-July, when she emailed me and she invited me to come and preach here, I got excited. And then I got very nervous. So I showed up that Sunday morning, 7:30 in the morning, got out of my car in the parking lot. Reverend Sam walked over to me and said, "Hey, good morning, how are you?" And I said, "Oh, I'm quite nervous." And she said, "Why are you nervous?" And I said, "Oh, I want to work here. Have I not been clear about that?" And she said, "Oh, no, you've been very clear, but we can talk about that later." And so I share that little vignette to let y'all know, one, a little bit about me, to let you know that I am delightfully unsubtle at times, and I try to be fairly direct in my interactions best as I can, and to two, talk about what it means to be called somewhere or to something. Right? Because I can want this job as much as I can. I can plead for it. I can work for it. I can make all the best arguments that I'm the best person for this job, preach as well as I can. And if I'm not actually called, it ain't happening. Right? I don't have the power to force myself to be called somewhere. I don't have that ability. Right? Unless the Lord does raise the house in vain, its builders strive. So what does it mean to be called somewhere or to something? And I think it's genuinely a pretty good question, because a lot of folks seem to think or make it seem like God making a clear call and then boom, it happens. Right? And folks, especially clergy folks, can talk about it like it's this bolt out of the blue, like every instance of a call, of a prompting from the Lord is a moment of pure and perfect clarity that clarifies and crystallizes around a moment of this revelation. And like maybe it's all like Isaiah's call from this morning. Maybe some people really do have a vision caught up in the throne room of the living God with seraphim soaring around shouting praise to His name, where God looks down and calls with great imperiousness and pronounces the call, sends us on our way, gives us clear and definitive instructions, totally turns our lives around and sends us in a completely different direction. Maybe that happens. Maybe. But here's the thing. That's not really even what happened in Isaiah's life. That's not what happened in Peter and the other apostles' lives. Yes, God really broke in and gave them a call. Yes, God showed up and gave them a task. But the reality is, God used what was there already, because that's how God operates. There's nothing actually unknown to our God, and our God is powerful enough to take what's already there. The structure of a person, the shape of a life that's already in place, and work from that point. Work from there, because God's the one that built that life in the first place. He's the one that built that structure in the first place. That's how God operates and works. He lived in a body. He died on a tree. He was buried in a grave and was raised back to life in that same body. God uses what's already there. So when Isaiah gets called to be a prophet, when the fisherman gets called to be fishers of other folks, it's not like they're doing something they've never done before, right? Isaiah was already a prophet. This is not the first thing we hear about Isaiah in the scriptures. This is chapter 6 of Isaiah. We've got 5 chapters before this where he's already a prophet, right? God's using what's already there. The fishermen were already fishing. They're just catching people from here on out. Those are some genuinely transferable skills. Several years ago, when I was first asked if I would ever be interested in entering the discernment process to start thinking about becoming a priest, I was genuinely worried, right? I wasn't 100% sure that I had a call because I hadn't heard this voice from heaven telling me. And I didn't have any undeniable feelings from the deepest part of me, deep in my gut. I just had this set of skills and abilities and passions and desires and a willingness to be curious and to keep showing up. I had a list of stuff I liked and I was good at, and I wanted to know if it would fit, so I discerned. I prayed about it, I thought about it, I talked about it, I asked questions about it, I wrestled with it, and then I tried it on as best I could at the time. And then it felt like a puzzle piece that was slotted into place, one that I didn't know was missing, right? And honestly, I think more often than not, that's what a calling is. That's what discernment leads to, or at least that's what a calling can legitimately look and feel like. What are you good at? What are you curious about? What's the structure of your life as is? And where can that take you? What do you want to see happen? What are you willing to stick with? What are you willing to keep showing up for? These are discernment questions, right? This is what it looks like to discern a calling, to figure it out, to see what God's already up to in your life, where the living God is already moving, and for us to just catch up wherever God's already on the move. And figuring out where God is already moving, already working, that's part of the call. That's just part of it. I think Isaiah's story shows us the other part as well, and it's not the whole blinding vision bit. It's the part where he says, "Here am I." I think there's a few different ways to hear that or to read it. There's this sort of, who shall we send? Who will go for us? And Isaiah stands proudly, hands on his hips, Superman of it all, and says, I will. And maybe that's how it was. Maybe he was found caught up in the throne room of the living God, having been cleansed by this burning coal, and still had the gumption to say, oh yeah, I'm the guy for the job. Maybe. I don't think so, though. I think putting ourselves in that place, if we find ourselves face to face with the hurricane that is the glory of God, with a force of nature, the force of nature, God himself, we're not going to be arrogant about anything. We're not going to be proud about anything. That's foolishness. I think more likely, after God's burning question, who will go for us? Who will we send? There might have been a pause, a silence, a long pause, a long silence. I wonder if Isaiah's answer wasn't more along the lines of, well, I'm here. I showed up. I'm here. I'm willing to do that, qualified or not. I'm willing to give it a shot. The text doesn't tell us either way, but I think that's how most of us would react in that situation, right? We're standing before the living God in the full weight of his glory and his power. I think we're more likely to tremble than tout our qualifications. But when you're there, when we're able, even if we're scared, if we're there, that's the other part of this calling, the discernment. Where are you? Where are you finding yourself? Are you willing to be there, to stay there? Are you willing to stay there even if you're unqualified, even if you're scared? There's nothing here that leads us to believe that we have to do what we feel good about. There's nothing here that says we have to do only what we're comfortable with. Really, the opposite fact. The question here really becomes, What needs to be done? And are you willing to do it? Are you able to do it? That sounds like a call to me. That sounds like Isaiah's call and the fisherman's call and Paul's call. That sounds like the way God calls folks and always has. So when it comes to us, what we do with these realities that God's call might be more about the shape and structure of our lives already, and about where we're willing to be, these are questions we have to be brave enough to ask and even braver to answer. Because I think more often than not, our call, the call on our lives, is just to figure out where the living God is already at work and to catch up. Amen.